Hi, I'm Evie Piscini. Welcome to my channel where I post at least one video a month talking about whatever niche, nostalgic, nerdy stuff that I'm into right now. My cat is in the background. Say hi to Angel. She will be hopping around for the entire video. Hi, Angel. The topic of today's video is Hairspray, more specifically the character of Edna Turnblad, who is Tracy's mom, of course. And in this video, we're going to be doing a lot of talking about the history and the evolution of this character. I'm going to be doing my best to show you my evidence that Edna Turnblad is not only underrated, but actually, in my opinion, kind of the heart of Hairspray, or at least one of them. Musicals can have more than one heart, right? They're not people. I don't know the anatomy of a musical. That would be an interesting video essay. Anatomy kind of freaks me out. Anyway, I'm starting this video essay assuming that you have at least a vague cultural understanding of Hairspray. I will give you a little bit of background, but if you don't, you might get a little bit confused at times. I don't think it's too hard to fill in the gaps, but I appreciate it if you got the spirit. So let's start with, what is Hairspray?
Hey Tracy, hey baby, look at me. I'm the cutest chickie that you ever did see.
The original 1988 John Waters film, Hairspray, was once described in a Rolling Stone review as a family movie both the Bradys and the Mansons could adore. Another description that I found worth mentioning was in the words of the father of Hairspray himself, John Waters, who described the film as a satire of two dreaded genres, the teen flick and the message movie. A teen flick or teen film is a film genre targeted at teenagers, preteens, and/or young adults, by the plot being based on their special interests, such as coming of age, attempting to fit in, bullying, peer pressure, first love, teen rebellion, conflict with parents, and teen angst or alienation. Often these normally serious subject matters are presented in a glossy, stereotyped, or trivialized way, while a message movie is a motion picture that in addition to or instead of being for entertainment intends to communicate a certain message or ideal about society. I had a pretty baseline understanding of who John Waters was and what he did before researching for this video, but because I dove so deep for this video, I feel like I have such a better understanding of John Waters, and I found myself pretty fascinated by him and his process and the way that he speaks about art. And I'm thinking that one of my next deep dives is probably going to be somewhere in the John Waters universe and or the concept of the teen flick and how it has evolved over time. There are little seeds of whatever the next deep dive that I'm going to have in this video. We'll see. Just you wait. Just you wait. Let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in down in the comments. I would love to gauge interest. I love pleasing the fans. So, like many other Gen Z or millennials, my first introduction to Hairspray was the 2007 film adaptation with Zac Efron, Brittany Snow, Christopher Walken, John Travolta, Amanda Bynes, and Nikki Blonsky from Hairspray.
You can't stop an avalanche as it races down the hill.
I still remember going to see the 2007 Hairspray movie as a kid. I would have been 9. That theater actually just recently shuttered its doors, and the mall that it's housed in is set to close later this year. It's really a sad part of growing older, just seeing the things that you grew up with disappear and get demolished and become defunct. And it is one of those things that has fueled my passion in preserving the history and understanding the history and not just kind of glazing over the history. And I guess these video essays are a symptom of that. I feel like I need to touch up my lips real quick. Go, mama, go, go, go. Welcome to the 60s. Hey, mama. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where was I? Even as a self-proclaimed fan of Hairspray, someone who can easily sing every word to every song, someone who was admittedly partially influenced to attend a college near Baltimore, Towson University, shout out, because the idea of being able to wake up in the morning and genuinely sing Good Morning Baltimore just excited me. All of that to say, we're about to be talking Hairspray, and more specifically, Tracy's mom, Edna Turnblad. I would love to know in the comments down below which iterations of Hairspray you're familiar with, so let me know. Though Tracy is written to be the protagonist of Hairspray, it's arguable, and I'm going to make that argument, that Edna exemplifies the themes of Hairspray just as much, if not more. To paraphrase a book that I'm going to be referencing a lot in this essay, Hairspray, written by Dana Heller, Hairspray is as much Edna's story as Tracy's. It is Edna who embodies the promise of visibility and influence, self-empowerment and freedom, a chance to grab the spotlight and dance, or forever wish you had. This video essay is meant to be a love letter of sorts, and hopefully a pretty in-depth history of the character and the role of Edna from her origination in the 1988 John Waters film to modern day. I want to talk about the influences and influence that the character has had, the reinterpretations through different performers, all of that and more. I also got a chance to sit down and talk with a friend of mine, Nathan Shepard, a theater actor whose dream role is Edna Turnblad.
As of this recording, I have not been in a production of Hairspray yet. I really want to play Edna and Hairspray.
I'm excited to share the insight we got from him throughout the video. I'll also be releasing a version of the full interview that I conducted with him on my channel, so keep an eye out for that. There are plenty of little gems that didn't end up making it into this full cut that you're not going to want to miss. It's also just fun to see two nerds nerd out about Hairspray, if that's your kind of thing, which if you're watching this video, I think it might be. While you may be familiar with the plot of Hairspray, or at least being familiar with it will make this video make a whole lot more sense, one thing that you may not know is that John Waters, the original creator of Hairspray, loosely based the film's plot off of real events. While John Waters has a reputation for controversial and boundary-pushing filmmaking, even stating in 1981 that his goal was to create, quote, the trashiest motion pictures in cinema history, Hairspray is an unsuspecting Trojan horse of sorts in comparison to the majority of his filmography. Like I said earlier, I think I want to do a John Waters or John Waters adjacent deep dive in the near future, so if that sounds like your jam, let me know in the comments. Originally written under the working title White Lipstick, John Waters loosely based Hairspray on the real-life Buddy Dean Show, a local Baltimore dance party program that Waters was a self-proclaimed groupie of during the 50s and early 60s. Very Tracy Turnblad of him. The Buddy Dean Show aired for 2.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, and according to page 10 of Hairspray by Dana Heller, John Waters not only enjoyed the show, he entertained himself by constructing wicked fantasies about the television teens. Of course, in typical John Waters fashion, if you know anything about John Waters, the fantasies consisted of things like the teens committing crimes, robberies, burning down schools, which isn't quite the direction that Hairspray went in, despite that definitely being more in line with what people would expect out of a John Waters film. To put it lightly, John Waters doesn't shy away from taboo. John Waters attended a fan reunion for the Buddy Dean Show more than 20 years after the show had ended and interviewed members of the cast for an April 1985 Baltimore Magazine article titled, Ladies and Gentlemen, the Nicest Kids in Town. This experience seemed to reignite the passion for the concept of a behind-the-scenes look at the lives of a Buddy Dean-like show, considering the film Hairspray was released just under 3 years later in February of 1988. There are some stark differences, however, between the real-life Buddy Dean Show and the Corny Collins show of Hairspray. For starters, there were no plus-size people on the Buddy Dean Show. John Waters himself stated that, quote, a black girl could have gotten on easier than a fat girl. I do want to acknowledge that while weight is the vehicle that the main character's story is told through, being the main form of oppression that she experiences firsthand, the other main important theme explored throughout Hairspray is race. More specifically, the Black experience during the segregation and early integration era in the United States. In Hairspray, the characters band together to work towards racial integration for the Corny Collins show, a goal that they appear to succeed in by the end of the show. Unlike the events of the fictional story, however, the Buddy Dean Show was inevitably canceled in 1964, rather than yielding to pushes for integration. Something that I want to make sure that I acknowledge within this video essay before I continue is the limited lens that we get in terms of this being a story about race relations that is told through the voice of both a white creator and a white main character. And this video essay is being made by a white person. So I'm not claiming to know everything. I'm not claiming to be the authority on any of those sorts of subjects. I would love to hear in the comments any sort of input or comments that anybody could have about that. I did, however, want to include a really good quote from a blog entry written by Miranda Hernandez and Whitney Williams on the RTF Gender and Media Culture blog posted on March 30th, 2024, titled Hairspray, Racism Through the White Girl's Eyes. Having a white creator and a white protagonist, this film naturally adopts a, quote, dominant gaze as coined by Laura Mulvey. Margaret Russell later expanded the term, defining it as, quote, the tendency of American pop culture cinema to objectify and trivialize the racial identity and experiences of people of color, even as it purports to represent them. Hairspray portrays Black characters in a positive light, but leaves them nearly two-dimensional. The existence of Black characters in the film is reduced to a cause for Tracy to fight for. Now that we have a little bit of background on the origins of Hairspray, let's get to know a little bit more about the history of the character of Edna Turnblad.
See, hey Tracy, hey baby, look at us. Where is there a team that's half as fabulous?
In my research for this video, I found a Reddit thread in r/acting by a teenage boy posted a couple years ago discussing getting cast as Edna for the school play and being nervous about how he'd be perceived by his classmates. There was one response that I really resonated with that spoke about the role with such respect, and I want to start with that. This is by user Posh Noob. Edna is an incredible role. The key thing to remember about Edna's character, she is not a drag queen, nor a man in drag or a pantomime dame. She's a big, eccentric mom who loves her daughter. So if you do choose to do this role, lean into it and run with it. It's a huge part and very often the most popular one. The banter you can have with Wilbur as well, especially during Timeless to me, is wonderful. Your school friends will laugh, but it's a comedy role. Throw yourself into it and they'll be laughing with you, not at you. If the director thinks you're capable of doing it, do it. You'll get the second biggest applause next to Tracy. The character of Edna Turnblad was originated in the 1988 John Waters film Hairspray by the actor Glenn Milstead, who is better known by his stage name Divine. It has been said that the role was originally written with Christine Jorgensen in mind, and for those unfamiliar, Christine Jorgensen was a trailblazing trans actress, singer, and activist who was the first person in the United States to be widely known for having sex reassignment surgery all the way back in the 1950s. She was the first publicly transgender person that a lot of people, including John Waters, knew, and there's a 15-minute documentary on the PBS YouTube channel that I'm going to link in the description below for anyone who'd like a chance to learn more about her. We're going to get into this a little bit further in one of the next sections, but I just really want to hammer home how huge Jorgensen is in terms of queer history, and the fact that she was the inspiration for this character really cements to me just how queer the origins of this character are. Like, she could be on the Mount Rushmore of trailblazing icons. Jorgensen passed away in 1989, only 1 year after the original release of the Hairspray film. Outside of Divine, the two main portrayals of Edna Turnblad that I'm going to be discussing today are by actor, playwright, screenwriter, trailblazing activist, and icon Harvey Fierstein, and John Travolta. As a character in the context of the movies and the Broadway show, Edna Turnblad is a laundress living in Baltimore, Maryland in the early 1960s with her husband Wilbur and the plot's protagonist, her teen daughter Tracy. The character is most well known for being portrayed by a male actor in drag, embracing excess, the queer feminist power of musical theater diva roles. In Michelle Dvoskin's Studies in Musical Theater sums up the presence of Edna in Hairspray well, in my opinion, stating that the role, quote, adds queerness to the musical, which has no gay characters. I got my friend Nathan to react to this quote, and I'm going to go ahead and insert a clip here. If you're interested in hearing and watching our entire conversation, keep an eye out for it on my channel. It will be posted separately. The role, quote, adds queerness to the musical, which has no gay characters. Do you feel like that is kind of an integral part of the role? Of, like, at least acknowledging the history of, like, Edna representing this coming out or queerness?
Yeah, I would say so, because, like, even in, like, the subtext of the script, you know, one of, like, Edna's dreams is to be to design clothing. She even says that to Tracy, like, I don't remember the exact quote, but she's like, I had a dream I'd be designing clothes, and here I am, like, washing pretty petties or whatever. By the end of the show, she literally comes out of a giant can of hairspray and is like, America, I made this myself. How almost on the nose can you be with that? Like,
it is,
like,
yeah, in my opinion, very much like an allegory for feeling closeted and feeling like you have to hide yourself away because of, like, feeling unapproved of by society for something that you can't control.
Yeah.
Her weight. And then coming out and
being
saying,
big is not the problem.
Like, you can't stop my happiness because I like the way I am.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
And, like, and if you don't like the way I look, I just don't give a damn.
I just don't give a damn.
So if you don't like the way I look, well, I just don't give a damn.
So that, to me, very much is central to the character of Edna. just want to make sure that I'm giving proper credit. This is Hairspray by Dana Heller. It is an academic look at Hairspray, and I really gleaned so much information from this. The author of this said that Hairspray is, quote, as much Edna's story as Tracy's, it is Edna who embodies the promise of visibility and influence, self-empowerment and freedom, a chance to grab the spotlight and dance, or forever wish that you had. Yes, Tracy takes a lot of the action in the story, but I feel like Edna really has a transformation in the way that in a way that Tracy doesn't necessarily. Like, Tracy is kind of where she already is at the beginning of the story and just gets a chance to have visibility, but Edna is the one that really transforms and shows the values and the point of the story of you have to stand up and accept who you are and show who you are, and if you don't like the way I look, well, I just don't give a damn.
Yeah.
So
and that brings up a good point too, because what's Tracy's main goal objectively in the show? To get on the Corny Collins show. She does that near the end of in the middle of Act 1. Edna does take up a lot of that emotional
welcome
aspect
to the 60s.
Of the show. Yeah, that whole scene is her because she said at least in the movie, she said I haven't been out of the house since
51 or something.
Yeah. She's
transforming the most within this. Tracy is maybe the catalyst for the story, but Edna is the mother and the heart of the story. She is the origination of a lot of Tracy's motivation, and Tracy's a lot of her identity comes from the things that she has in common with her mother, Edna, her being plus sized and her being kind of othered from society because of these things that she doesn't really have control over. So I think Edna is a huge part of Hairspray, if not really the unsung hero and underrated core of the story. And now I'm going to go ahead and read the separate Wikipedia breakdowns for the character in the 1988 film, the Broadway adaptation, the 2007 film, and the 2016 Hairspray Live. In Hairspray's first iteration, the 1988 comedy film written and directed by John Waters, Edna was played by drag queen, actor, and singer Divine. Originally, Waters had plans for Divine to play both Edna and Tracy, though eventually the idea was scrapped. However, Divine does play Arvin Hodgepile, the racist television station manager, out of drag. When describing the role of Edna, Divine noted that this character could not be accurately described as a drag queen, proclaiming, "What drag queen would allow herself to look like this? I look like half the women from Baltimore." Hairspray was Divine's last feature film, as he died 3 weeks after its premiere and only 9 days after its theatrical release. He received widespread acclaim for the role, with critics proposing that with Hairspray, Divine finally broke into the mainstream world of film. He later received a posthumous nomination for the Independent Spirit Award for Best Supporting Male. In addition, Divine's groundbreaking performance as Edna is the inspiration for the continued casting of men in the role of Tracy's mother. On Divine's untimely passing, John Waters had this to say, "After you've worked hard all your life and finally succeed, I think you deserve more than 2 weeks to enjoy it." Edna was originated on Broadway in Hairspray's 2002 musical adaptation by actor and playwright Harvey Fierstein after premiering the role in the show's out-of-town tryout at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle.
In Seattle was when I was in my dressing room. I'd already taken off my costume, already taken off my wig, and I said, "What is that noise?" And the audience was stomping, still in the house stomping for me to come back out. It was one of those magical moments that you never think it will ever happen in your life. I will never forget that feeling. They said, "Harvey, you've got to go back out there. The audience won't leave." It was a lot of the audience was the Seattle Men's Chorus, who I had worked with, and so they were there, cheering us on. But and the audience stayed, and I came out in my dressing room.
Did you? Oh, no, you didn't put the wig back on. You just.
No, I mean, I'd already started undressing. We were already, and so I came back out of my dressing room and screamed and all. It was just one of the most thrilling things, and that's when I said, "Whatever happens, we've got something."
Fierstein is known for his distinctly gravelly, baritone voice type, adding another level of humor to his portrayal. Fierstein did not play the role for the entirety of its over 6-year Broadway run, but he, as well as Marissa Janet Whittaker, who originated the role of Tracy, returned to the show for its last months of performances at the Neil Simon Theater. Fierstein's performance was highly praised by critics, with Howard Kissel of the Daily News noting that, with this role, Fierstein places himself in the great line of Broadway divas. His performance also earned him the 2003 Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical, as well as the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Actor in a Musical. Other notable portrayals of Edna on stage include Michael Ball in the show's West End premiere, Michael McKean, Bruce Valanche, John Panette, Paul C. Vogt, George Wendt, Brian Conley, Phil Jupitus, Nina West, and Shane Jacobson. And now for the 2007 film adaptation. From the early developmental stages of the 2007 musical film adaptation of Hairspray, John Travolta was in talks to play Edna on screen by executive producers Craig Zadan and Neil Marin. Once Travolta was confirmed in the role, Torrey Gardner and his company Alterian Inc. were hired to design and create Edna's look, including a fat suit consisting of layered pads and silicone, used from the chest upwards, and foam latex arms and legs, collaborating with costume designer Rita Ryack, who shared Travolta's wishes to put Edna into several revealing outfits and to give her body a defined figure. Travolta's interpretation of the role had a heavy Baltimore accent, also fought for by the character, and was overall a lighter portrayal of Edna. Fun fact, Nikki Blonsky revealed on The Oprah Winfrey Show that the first words that John Travolta ever said to her were, "Come to mama." Sorry, that's so crazy. I'm sure he meant well, but that's so... He received mixed reviews for his portrayal, with Slate's Dana Stevens going as far to say that how you feel about Hairspray will depend entirely on your reaction to this performance. David Denby of The New Yorker called Travolta's portrayal a blandly earnest betrayal, while some called his performance, and him by relation, outright homophobic. Despite this, Travolta was nominated for several awards, including the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture. And for completion's sake, let's go ahead and read through the Wikipedia breakdown for Edna in the 2016 Hairspray Live. Harvey Fierstein returned to the role of Edna in the 2016 live television adaptation of the musical Hairspray Live, broadcast by NBC. The network's head of entertainment, Robert Greenblatt, stated that Fierstein's performance is the iconic Edna Turnblad. We should memorialize that performance on film, and that his involvement in the production made it come full circle, though Greenblatt also expressed interest in having Travolta reprise his role from the musical film.
I hear a rumor, I don't know if it's true or not, that I was like the 10th or 11th person they came to.
You're kidding me.
But I was fine.
Fierstein also wrote the teleplay adapting Mark O'Donnell and Thomas Meehan's book of the musical. Variety's Sonia Saraya highlighted Fierstein's performance as predictably great, with Caroline Side of the AV Club agreeing, noting that the performance was wonderful. This isn't fully relevant to the content of this video, but I did find John Waters' perspective on Hairspray Live pretty interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and insert it here.
NBC announced a live version of Hairspray the Musical would join the other TV musical specials that were ripping up the ratings: The Sound of Music, The Wiz, Peter Pan, Grease, and now us. Nobody from the network ever contacted me about this version. Not once did anybody ask me about casting, writing, or promoting the show. I even had to contact the press office myself to ask them how I should handle calls I was getting about the project. Their publicist didn't seem to know, but arranged a hurried meeting between the new Tracy and me when they were doing some casting in Baltimore, as a stunt if you ask me, without hiring Pat Moran, my longtime casting agent, who has cast many, many Hollywood movies and TV shows whenever they shoot in Baltimore. Oh well, I got a nice free dinner and a one-time nominal fee. Now why would you make Motormouth Maybelle thin with Vegas-type showgirl breasts? The gym teacher is now not a lesbian and Rosie O'Donnell plays her? I guess I could live with all those dubious decisions. But the one blasphemy I couldn't handle was that during the live breaks on the air, they went to Philadelphia to talk with original dancers on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. Heresy! That show never aired in Baltimore, only Buddy Dean did. But did NBC talk to any of the local committee members, as they were really called here? The ones who actually taught Ricky Lake to do some of the dance steps in the movie? Hell no, you gotta be kidding me.
Fabulous! I let go of the past now. Said hello to this red carpet ride.
Why is it always, do they always go to a man to play Edna?
I think it's more subversive that way. John Waters always felt, and this has more to do with the film than the show, John Waters felt how incredibly subversive it was to make a G-rated film, to be John Waters, the man famous for feeding poodle poop to a drag queen. Well, not only that, but giving the poodle an enema first. But that this man would make a G-rated movie. Yeah. And then when you come see our show, that the wonderful emotional moment, the 11 o'clock emotional moment of the show, is this beautiful number between two middle-aged people enjoying each other, The two middle-aged people are actually two men. Though I'm playing a woman, it's really two men. There's something wonderfully subversive about that. Would it be wonderful with Lainey? I think it would. Would it be different? Yes. And so that's a choice that the creative team and the producers made, that they want to try and keep it a man.
So it's really a choice, not a necessity.
Yeah, and I would think.
What I think is so remarkable about your performance and about that wonderful moment, which is really one of the great moments of any Broadway show, when you and Dick Latessa dance, two people who've been in love all their lives.
Yeah, it's a wonderful moment to play.
I don't really see you as a man in drag. I mean, I see Edna Turnblad as a 100% a woman. And that's how the audience sees her too.
Theater. That's the magic of theater that is done there, and so it's wonderful that we can do that magic trick right there. And it's not a magic trick that sounds cheap.
Not at all.
But we've worked really hard for 2 hours to get to that point where you will love that moment of those two dancing. And I can't tell you what it's like to perform that.
Middle-aged heterosexual couples love that moment in the theater.
Oh, absolutely. Now, would it not be the same magic if it was a man and a woman?
I think it would be different. I don't think it would be as effective.
Yes.
I don't think it would be as effective.
Both Divine and Harvey Fierstein are gay icons and trailblazers on a different level, at least in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of people, which is what makes it disappointing to go with John Travolta for the 2007 movie, which is an opinion that I'm going to be exploring a good deal in this video. Please hear me out. I think I make some good points, and I think I found some good evidence to back them up. Prior to what many believe, Divine did not identify as trans. Glenn Milstead was about as openly queer as you could be for the time. He embraced gender nonconformity, he cross-dressed often for roles, but outside of all the performances, he wanted to be seen and identified as a man. To quote Wikipedia, as to Divine's gender identity, Waters said, "People think Divine, they always think wrong, was trans. Divine never dressed as a woman except when he was working. He had no desire to be a woman. He didn't want to pass as a woman, he wanted to pass as a monster. He was thought up to scare hippies, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be Godzilla. Well, he wanted to be Elizabeth Taylor and Godzilla put together." There's a fun little bit of history that Divine has with Elizabeth Taylor. There's a picture that I'm going to put up on the screen of Divine dressed as Elizabeth Taylor, and I think it's very endearing. He apparently had an obsession with Elizabeth Taylor, and that bled into the role of Edna as well. To once again quote Hairspray by Dana Heller, shout out to this book, get it if you can. Divine was not a transvestite, nor did he play one in his movies. He is often referred to as a freak, although in fact he was not. He just played freaks. Divine was a gay male actor who became famous for creating a certain kind of female character. When he was not working on a film, he wore men's clothes. The case is similar for Harvey Fierstein, who played Edna on Broadway, as exploring gender and drag have also been central parts of his life and career, and he has talked about those topics extensively. I'm also going to insert some clips of Harvey Fierstein throughout this video because I just find his insight so helpful and resonant, and I'm not sorry for that. I love Harvey Fierstein. I look up to him so much. He is a guiding light in this world. If you're not familiar with him, you're going to get a little bit more familiar with him through this video because I already kind of recreationally watch Harvey Fierstein interviews just because I find the way that he talks about the world to be so helpful and so comforting. And then I also found some clips that are relevant to this video, so I got to use my recreational Harvey Fierstein video watching as research.
You've done drag for years, as I said in the intro.
Absolutely.
Since Andy Warhol's Pork, right?
Right,
So,
yeah.
and
Since I
on
was a little kid.
the Touchstone trilogy you wrote for yourself.
But nothing like this.
But still, there's something about that resonates within you that you
Yeah.
that you blossom
I
playing.
think it allowed me to enter it with a little less trepidation. I knew how to walk in heels already. I've worn wigs, I've worn makeup and all that.
What about doing drag called to you? That when you were just a teenager, you said, "Let's go and do it."
It's really a very strange, complicated story of, I think, being an effeminate kid. You know, and I have a lovely children's book about that called Susie Duckling about being a effeminate kid. But when I was with this community theater, I was an art student, and a friend of mine, her mother was starting a community theater in Brooklyn, which still exists now, the Gallery Players, and I was one of the founding members as this kid who went to make posters. Then they said, "Do you want to pull a curtain? Do you want to do, you know?" And I got folded into theater, I don't know how, and there all of a sudden there I was. She said, "The men's roles don't really fit you. You're not old enough to do the kinds of character roles. You will not work until you're 40 years old." She said this to a 13-year-old kid. She said, "You won't work until you're 40. You're a character actor." So but because you have all this emotional availability, let me give you young women's roles, because at least they write young women's roles with some emotional vulnerability that you can use. So it was, funnily enough, she who put me in drag, though I never was in drag, but I played Frankie in Member of the Wedding. I played Juliet. Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek. I still remember.
I'd like to see you do that now. Romeo and Juliet at the Public Theater with Harvey
I think I'm more the maid these days. Hamlet, your mother would like to see you in the closet. But that's sort of how it started. Then I'm in art school and all that, and then there was this advertisement in the paper for Andy Warhol doing a play called Pork. I went to the audition. I'd never heard of La Mama before. I'm 16 years old. I go down there, and what do? I think I did Juliet's monologue, which was the only monologue I had prepared. They were on the floor laughing. I couldn't understand why. I was the only person hired that wasn't a friend, in the circle.
in that gang, right.
And they said, come, first rehearsal's on Tuesday at 2:00 at Great Jones Street, and, come and drag. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're going to play this maid. And I said, what kind of maid? They said, an asthmatic lesbian maid. That's the role you're playing. And I went, okay. And the rest, as they say.
Some of Harvey's other prominent works include Kinky Boots, La Cage aux Folles, and Torch Song Trilogy, all of which openly explore queerness and gender nonconformity in their own unique ways, and all of which I would absolutely recommend checking out if you're not familiar. Torch Song Trilogy in particular holds a special place in my heart, and I would love to make a video about it sometime, so let me know if that's something that you would be interested in. When it comes to gender, Harvey does not fully identify or conform to traditional gender roles. Speaking with People magazine in February 22 to promote his memoir, I Was Better Last Night, Firestein stated, "I'm still confused as to whether I'm a man or a woman, and that as a child he often wondered if he'd been born in the wrong body. When I was a kid, I was attracted to men. I didn't feel like a boy was supposed to feel. Then I found out about gay, so that was enough for me then." The interview also noted his ease at playing both Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof and Edna Turnblad in Hairspray. He avoided identifying as non-binary in the interview, saying that he had thought about it a lot and, quote, "It's the term that bothers me," but concluded that, quote, "I don't think I've missed anything by not making up my mind," which I think could definitely resonate with a lot of people. On the LGBTQ&A podcast the following month, Firestein said, quote, "I'm comfortable being me, and if I ask myself, would you want to transition? The answer is no. There is a level of understanding and empathy for gender nonconformity and the experience of queerness and coming out that, as we'll see later on, John Travolta not only denies having, but also seems to be actively trying to strip from the role."
The whole thing with Edna, about expressing yourself, it basically represents the coming out and the queer journey. It's also more about being yourself, because with Tracy, she's a plus size woman getting to be on this show, and then she's getting insults thrown at you, oh, what is it, Tugboat Turnblad they call her, in the stage show. First off, rude as hell, but she doesn't care. And then going back to Edna, I don't give a damn. It's just about expressing yourself and just being your true self, and also being hey, don't be racist.
In my opinion, the embracing of queerness to the role is key. Yet, as we'll see from the responses that Travolta gives to the concerns and criticisms of him taking on this role, he didn't seem to agree with that.
Every gay child grows up in a family, or whatever their circumstances, looks at the world around them and tries to figure out where they belong. Now, a heterosexual child sees very easily where they belong. Oh, I'm a girl. I belong here. I'm attracted to boys, blah, blah, the opposite of boys. Every gay child does that same math problem and comes out with a different answer, and then has to go back and run all the compilations again to see where they come out. They come out with a different answer, and that goes on. And that's actually the act of coming out. That's how we come out to ourselves. Some people don't get that right answer until they're 50, 60, 70 years old, but that is coming out. So
this video is going to have a lot of Harvey Firestein clips, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I think that the way he speaks so clearly and so succinctly about the concept of queerness and coming out and being understood is why he does this character so well, and why he understands this character and who this character, in my opinion, is so deeply, is because he's coming from this genuine place of understanding. And I'm sorry, John Travolta, you just don't got it. I'm not going to get into speculation about John Travolta's sexuality, That is absolutely something that has been part of the public conversation for years. That is the most that I'm going to address John Travolta's personal life and sexuality, because I don't really think it's my business to speculate. But I really just want to hammer home the comparison of the way that Harvey sees the world and the way that John Travolta sees the world. Let's continue. Just out of curiosity, I want to know if anybody has any fan casts for this role. I can't think of anybody that I love right off the bat, but I do have some names that were allegedly considered for the role that I think are fun. I would love to hear your opinions on them. I showed them to my friend Nathan, and I'm going to insert a clip of us talking about that right here. I have a handful of people that were apparently considered for the role of Edna Turnblad for the 2007 movie. I would like to read these off to you.
I don't think I've heard of these.
Steve Martin. I could see it. Robin Williams.
Oh my God.
Tom Hanks.
Eh,
John Cusack.
I couldn't see that. No. No.
Nathan Lane.
Yes.
Matthew
Yes.
Broderick.
Maybe.
Kevin James.
I think so. Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know that I can see it, but I'm willing. I would have seen him audition at least. Kevin Spacey.
Nope. Nope. Instant nope. Get him out.
Will Ferrell. I
Maybe.
think that leans a little bit too comedy.
Oh yeah, because at the time Elf would have come out and
Yeah, it would feel too
yeah.
much like they're just like trying to make it funny.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler. There's a
I-
universe in which it could work, but having seen Jack and Jill, I don't trust him with that.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins.
I think he'd be too old for it
I
at
agree.
the time. Yeah.
Bill Murray.
Eh.
William Shatner.
No.
Those were the people that were allegedly considered for
God,
Edna
we
Turnblad.
could have lived in a world where Robin Williams played Edna like that. Damn.
That hurts.
I know.
I don't love any of those options, honestly, other than Harvey, but even despite my love for Harvey, I understand why he wasn't given the role in the big Hollywood adaptation, and he also understood it. So let's hear a little clip of him talking about it.
The most of the money, as I understand it, for that New Line film came from China. So when you go to Chinese investors and you say, we've got Harvey Firestein, they go. So, but if you
There's
say
so many things.
we have, Batman eyes or
Yes.
whatever, they go, oh, okay, we'll put money in.
This fun fact is some of the people that were allegedly considered for the role of Wilbur Turnblad. We've got Martin Short, who ended up playing him in Hairspray Live, Tim Allen, Kurt Russell, Dennis Quaid, Kevin Costner, Jon Favreau, Tim Robbins, and Bill Nighy. Interesting casting choices.
Yes, I know that the world's spinning fast now. Tell Lola Brigida to step aside.
Let's travel back in time and get a feel for what it was like when John Travolta was announced as the person taking on the role of Edna Turnblad. According to an article published on June 13th, 2007 by the Tampa Bay Times, some gay fans of the original Hairspray movie are unhappy with the soon-to-be-released musical version of the 1988 film because John Travolta plays Edna Turnblad. The role originated by drag queen Divine. And then there's a quote by Kevin Naff, the managing editor of the gay-oriented Washington Blade, who was one of the leading voices in the charge against this casting, which reads, Travolta, a prominent Scientologist, has no business reprising an iconic gay role given his religion's stance on gay issues. Continuing, it's well known that Scientology rejects gays and lesbians as members and even operates reparative therapy clinics to, quote, cure homosexuality. I am going to dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of the Scientology claims later in this video, so preemptive trigger warning for religious homophobia, all of that sort of nonsense. It's not a focal point of the video, but we are going to talk about it a little bit. But in my opinion, this is a 110% valid starting point for criticism of John Travolta and of the 2007 Hairspray movie. There are several other things about this portrayal to criticize outside of Travolta's religion. It's also just the way he speaks about the role and embodying a bigger person, and specifically a bigger woman, that didn't really sit right with me. And he's not the only one. The director, Adam Shankman, also said some weird stuff, so I'm going to put some clips here. If you haven't seen these videos, I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. I didn't love them. I didn't know that they existed until I started doing research for this video, and then I was kind of disgusted.
At the same time we did the makeup test, we actually took the prototype of the bodysuit. And John, in looking in the mirror, had an immediate visual reaction and an immediate opinion on some of the forms.
I decided that she was a hot tamale in her day, and she was very voluptuous.
He's like, what if she was more of a Rubenesque hourglass? Let's soften the shoulders, curve out the body. How curvy can we get it and make it work on a 6-foot-tall frame? And it turns out pretty curvy. Anything masculine pretty much went away.
I kind of got, jowls are too big here, and maybe the chin's too small there, and I think the cheeks could be a little more apple-y.
For this next little bit, I'm going to pull and discuss some quotes that I found in a July 15th, 2007 New York Times piece by Jesse Green titled Seeking His Inner Her, size XXL, which, if I'm honest, left a lot to be desired. I'm going to be leaving all of the links that I've used for this video in the description. If I miss one, please let me know in the comments and I will find it and link it both in the comments and in the description because I want to be thorough. I used a lot of sources for this video and I want to make sure that everybody gets credited. Also, I really want people to go check out the original full sources that I'm pulling these quotes from because context matters and I can't give the full context of the article for everything. But I am doing my best to not pull anything out of context and misrepresent anything that anybody said. One claim from John Travolta that I'm going to immediately pull out from this article that I wanted to, bring attention to is that he modeled the idea of a watchable woman on his very sexy mother. Very sexy mother being in quotes, as in that is something that John Travolta directly said that the writer of the article added in. Also, on embodying a female character, he said, playing a woman attracted me. Playing a drag queen did not. The vaudeville idea of a man in a dress is a joke that works better on stage than it does on film, and I didn't want any winking or camping. I didn't want it to be John Travolta plays Edna. The article also states that before filming, he had costumers, special makeup effects people, and even prop masters repeatedly revising their work to achieve the look he imagined in house dresses, fat suits, and irons. He did not want to resemble a refrigerator or Jabba the Hutt, he said, but Sophia Loren with a couple extra pounds. And he got his wish. His Edna, again, these are not my words. These are not my words. His Edna, unlike the greasy Gorgon created by Divine in the 1988 John Waters original, or the kabuki housefrau rendered so memorably by Harvey Fierstein in the 2002 Broadway musical adaptation, has cleavage and a waist and a kind of geologic sex appeal. To continue from the same article, focusing on a new lyric for the song Welcome to the 60s, I haven't left this house since 1951, he, being John Travolta, decided that Edna should seem, quote, damaged, too ashamed of her weight to be seen in public. I got my friend Nathan to react to a couple of these quotes, and I'm going to go ahead and insert his reaction here. Playing a woman attracted me. Playing a drag queen did not. The vaudeville idea of a man in a dress is a joke that works better on stage than it does on film, and I didn't want any winking or camping.
Wasn't the whole marketing for Edna kind of like John Travolta is in a dress? That's it's so backwards too.
Also, that's not the role. It's not a man. It has never been a man in a dress. It has never been a drag. It is a role that can be played. You have to have kind of an understanding of drag, but you don't need to be a drag queen in order to play Edna. And I feel like John Travolta was like, oh, that's just like a drag queen, gay role. I'm not going to play it that way. I'm going to play it real.
Like I mentioned before, John Pinette was not gay and he played Edna for a brief stint. I don't know how to take this comment. Actually, I've never heard this comment before. That's.
Let me just do another quote really quickly.
Oh, quote, goody!
Instead of playing the old joke of being a man in a woman's fat suit, I decided to play a new joke and create and become a blue-collar woman from Baltimore. A more naturalistic, filmic Edna, not flamboyant and stagey. That feels disrespectful as hell to the,
He literally did pratfalls in the movie. There's, a scene where he, trips over a bed. That is slapstick. That is,
It is more, his interpretation is more man in a woman's fat suit than any other interpretation that I know of. So it's crazy for him to say that.
When I think of man in a fat suit role, I think of roles movies like Nutty Professor and Norbit and if we want to go there.
Jack
like
and Jill.
Jack and Jill, like the Medea movies, Tyler, like most of Tyler Perry's work, like that is man in a fat suit playing a different character. And
this feels more on that level to me. And I enjoyed John Travolta's portrayal, but to me it felt way more scaling towards the Medea of it all.
Yeah.
Than a naturalistic filmic Edna. Like that's not what he did. In the blog post Hairspray, Familiar Waters, written by Felicia Feaster on July 18th, 2007, an apt comparison is made that I'd like to bring to this discussion. Travolta joins the ranks of Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, and Tyler Perry in the distasteful current trend, far from Waters' crude but good-natured sensibility, of actors who adorn a female fatsuit for hilarity's sake. Continuing later to say, Travolta dressing as a hefty Baltimore housewife seems to come from the same place as frat boys in Milton Berle, a straight guy's sense of hilarity at the fleshy absurdity of the female form and the fun of imitating it for a time. To be fair, there are also some statements within this blog post that I do not resonate with. For example, Feaster refers to Edna as, quote, Tracy's inflated mom, and refers to Travolta in the role as a beady-eyed freak with a mouth of marbles forming an incomprehensible accent and the kind of caricatured body that transforms bosomy motherly softness into a malicious dartboard. Ouch. Travolta's Baltimore accent leaves a lot to be desired, especially as somebody who went to school and lived outside of Baltimore for several years. It leaves a lot to be desired, but I don't necessarily agree with the mean-spiritedness of some of the critiques. If anything, Divine's portrayal reads as much more naturalistic, possibly the most naturalistic of all of the mainstream portrayals.
Could you turn that racket down? I'm trying to iron in here.
And just to play the other side for a moment, Travolta's performance was overall pretty well received and liked by the general audiences. I'm not going to act like I came at the 2007 Hairspray adaptation off the bat with this critical of a lens. I admittedly did not really mind John Travolta's portrayal at first until I started scratching the surface and getting a better understanding of the role.
Other than Grease, I think this is his like best like role, I think.
It is transformative. Despite like
That's
some behind the scenes things that I may not like appreciate or agree with necessarily. He did still transform, and until I knew all of this like extra baggage and context, I didn't think all of that. I enjoyed it, so I'm not gonna have like chronological snobbery with it and be like, I thought he was always like he was good in the role.
Yeah.
The more you kind of learn about what the role was intended to be, the more you're kind of like, they could have done better, but at the same time, he did transform. Hot take. I think that most of the people that claim to have a lot of affection for John Travolta in the role just really, if it came down to it, they would just appreciate Edna, period, in any iteration, and the 2007 movie is just the one that they're the most familiar with, and they don't really care to venture out of what they're familiar with. The source material is just good. Like, it's not that John Travolta, yes, he transformed, but like, was he that good, or is the source material just that good and he just managed to not mess it up? Attack me in the comments if you want. It's free engagement. That's my opinion. I'm not judging anyone who still loves John Travolta in the role, by the way, even operating with the information that I've provided here. This is just one of those things that, in retrospect, in my opinion, maybe could have been handled better or differently. A blog post titled More News from the Travolta Wars by Mark Merlin from Wednesday, July 25th, 2007, includes an analysis that I enjoyed. Our identification with the movie character is only a starting point. Even characters that invite our sympathy don't often affect us unless they change in some significant way in the course of the film. Hairspray, ironically, offers its lead character as an example of how this sometimes doesn't work. Tracy Turnblad, Edna's daughter, wonderfully performed by Nikki Blonsky, begins the film as an effervescent, idealistic, irrepressible young woman and ends the film much the same way. She is the hero of the film, of course, but a guileless one. We cheer for her the same way we might cheer for a valiant, clever puppy in a remake of a Benji movie, but we never really get to know her any better. Edna, unlike Tracy, is a diffident, pessimistic, inhibited woman of middle years who, because of her daughter's enthusiasm for dance, is forced to come out of her shell and to explore a world that, due to her obesity, she has shunned for many years. Hesitant and uncertain Edna, nonetheless, slowly develops confidence to step out into a new life, first as Tracy's business agent and eventually as an activist on the front lines in the civil rights movement. By first having us identify with, and therefore care about, Edna, and then setting that character in motion, having her learn and change, Travolta makes Hairspray a much more interesting film. I just kind of disagree that the credit for Edna should go to Travolta, and I disagree that Travolta was necessarily the best person for the job. When speaking on the men who have played the role of Edna for Waters Recalls Men Who Played Edna by John Waters for Variety on August 9th, 2007, Waters described the origins of the character, stating, "In the beginning, Devine played the role of Edna Turnblad, and on the first day on the set of Hairspray, I didn't recognize him. I thought it was another neighborhood woman watching the shoot. We were filming in East Baltimore and all the housewives were talking to him. Devine looked normal, not weird. It was a moment of truth. It was so anti the Devine character. If there's a template, that's it for everybody who has taken the role of Edna, and they've all taken that to heart. Edna Turnblad is not a drag queen part. It has become tradition for men to play her, as with Peter Pan, where it's always played by a woman. Why? I don't know. It gives it an edge. It's all about outsiders. Devine played Edna realistically. The movie, 1988, I made was actually realistic. John Travolta plays Edna as someone who had been young and very hot, but now is stay at home and embarrassed to go out of the house. He had been the Russmeyer girl when he was young, and Russmeyer girls do get larger in real life. It's like muscle men who don't work out. They turn into bears. When it came to public discourse over Travolta's religion and identity and how those two things may or may not have been odds with the role of Edna, Waters had this to say, quote, "If he were homophobic, he'd have a heart attack on the set. He's in a dress singing a love song to his husband, so what's anyone complaining about?" Adam Shankman claimed that Travolta was not a homophobe, as Adam Shankman, John Waters, and several other key crew and creative staff were homosexual, and Travolta got along well with them. So,
you can't stop my happiness, 'cause I like the way I am.
The director, Shankman, also made it clear that, quote, "John's personal beliefs did not walk onto my set. I never heard the word Scientology." So I guess credit to him for not being super unprofessional and talking about Scientology all the time on the set of the movie. Bare minimum, but moving on.
Your mama's welcome in the 60s. Oh, 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 oh.
"There's nothing gay in this movie," Travolta told the London Times Online. "I'm not playing a gay man. Scientology is not homophobic in any way," Travolta said in a Today article subtitled, "John Travolta says that gay rights folks who are looking to boycott Hairspray don't know what they're talking about." Another quote from John states, "In fact, it's one of the more tolerant faiths. Anyone's accepted." In another statement on Scientology, he said, "Scientology is one of the least homophobic religions. It's not very interested in the body at all. I don't claim to be an expert in Scientology, nor do I want this to turn into a video all about Scientology, but I do kind of want to go ahead and fact check that against Scientology's own words and actions." Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard wrote in his 1950 bestseller Dianetics that gays were, quote, "sexual perverts and, quote, very ill physically." The Church of Scientology's perspectives on homosexuality are based on the writings of its founder, and his statements about homosexuality have led critics to state that Scientology promotes homophobia, and being gay or accused of being gay is viewed as negative in the Scientology community. According to a 2018 source, that is over 10 years after all of this Hairspray stuff took place, for context, currently used updated versions of Hubbard's canonical book, Dianetics, continue to use heteronormative and anti-gay language and list gay people as perverts who are physically ill and extremely dangerous to society. Some critics have stated that the church tried to change their gay attractions through forms of therapy. To speak a little bit more on Dianetics, which is like the Bible of Scientology, basically. In 1950, Hubbard published Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, introducing his Science of the Mind, Dianetics. He classified homosexuality as an illness or sexual perversion, citing contemporary psychiatric and psychological textbooks to support his view. The sexual pervert, and by this term Dianetics, to be brief, includes any and all forms of deviation in dynamic 2, i.e. sexuality, such as homosexuality, lesbianism, sexual sadism, etc. And Dianetics is not the only key piece of Scientology literature that also touts these beliefs. So it's not just this one like old book that happened to have these views. It's repeated. Let's talk about Ruth Minshall's book, How to Choose Your People, which was published through the Church of Scientology, copyrighted to Hubbard and given issue authority by the Scientology hierarchy. This book contained a good amount of harmful stuff, including this quote, homosexuals don't practice love. Their relationships consist of 1, brief, sordid, and impersonal meetings, or 2, longer arrangements punctuated by dramatic tirades, discords, jealousies, and frequent infidelity. It could hardly be otherwise, since the tone is made up of suspicion and hate, producing a darling sweetness interspersed with petty peevishness. Their love turns to deep content eventually. Girl, why are you all up in these people's business? Why do you care? Homosexuals had no redeeming, quote, social value in Minshall's view. She cautioned that, quote, homosexuals should not be abused or ridiculed, but a society bent on survival must recognize any aberration as such and seek to raise people out of the low emotion that produces it. Despite regulating and controlling the sexual relationships and lives of Scientologists being pretty prominent for L. Ron Hubbard early on, in his later years, he sought to distance himself from efforts to regulate the sexual affairs of lay Scientologists. In a 1967 policy letter, he declared, "It has never been any part of my plans to regulate or to attempt to regulate the private lives of individuals. Whenever this has occurred, it has not resulted in any improved condition. Therefore, all formal rules, regulations, and policies relating to the sexual activities of Scientologists are canceled." Despite this, all of the stuff about homosexuality is still in amended later editions of Scientology books. Apparently, gay Scientologists have argued that Hubbard and the Church of Scientology have set aside any anti-homosexuality views expressed, although it seems more like a don't ask, don't tell, don't do it in public sort of policy, which is invalidating and gross, and people should be able to live their lives, and any church or organization or group that tries to like tell you that you can't be who you are, especially when it's something as simple as like loving who you want to love. I think that's a little harmful, hot take. Just because Scientology isn't like first and foremost being like, hey, you can't be gay, there are definitely things in place that are making it so that like it's better if you're not. And the fact that they haven't amended these anti-gay sentiments in the later editions of the books tells me that they still believe it. Anyway, that was a little bit of a side tangent, so we're going to get back to John Travolta specifically. Let me know in the comments if you think that this is relevant. I think that this is relevant. I think that, especially with John Travolta, who has made his Scientology such a core tenet of his like personhood and his public identity, it bleeds into the art. To quote John Travolta directly, "Anyway, I'm not playing gay in this. I'm playing a woman, so I don't know if this applies really. I guess maybe if I was in Brokeback Mountain, we'd have another kind of discussion, but this is not that." Producer of the 2007 film, Neil Marin, who with partner Craig Zadan also produced Chicago, agreed that Edna Turnblad is not a drag role. "We hired an actor to play the role of Edna, not an actor to be a man wearing a dress and a fat suit." And also, John Waters never conceived of the role as a drag role. I mean, it happened to be that Divine was a drag queen, but it's not a drag queen role. The only tradition is that a man play the role of Edna. Again, I think I've already said this, but nobody said that it was necessarily a drag role. To quote Travolta again, "Instead of playing the old joke of being a man in a woman's fat suit, I decided to play a new joke and create and become a blue-collar woman from Baltimore." This quote to me is just like maybe part of my thesis because I hate it so much, and I think it just really showcases how much he doesn't respect the role, in my opinion. I just think old joke is crazy, but also, according to Wikipedia, it took 4 hours to put on the 30-pound fat suit and 5 gel-filled silicone face prosthetics just to become Edna Turnblad.
We knew right off the bat that the makeup was going to need to cover his entire head, just for the sole purpose of hiding his 5 o'clock shadow. We sculpted 6 different looks of Edna. We took the original sculptures to Adam, lined them all up in a row and said, hey, what do you think of these?
Like 8 different fatness possibilities of John's face. I kind of go, jowls are too big here, and maybe the chin's too small there, and I think the cheeks could be a little more appley. I mean, I was like crazy.
We got his feedback and then designed it and broke it down into a multi-piece makeup so that we could control how it went on, how the pieces overlapped, and how it would move. And we took that first makeup to John's house so that we could get his feedback.
5 hours of latex on the face and blending and pieces.
Once John's in the chair, we start the neck piece. This eliminates his skin texture and gives us the extra weight underneath his jawline. It also gives us a little more mass on the sides of his neck overall. And then from here, we start building up the face. We add the cheek pieces, which is really the entire side of the face. It goes from the cheekbone back to the ears, all the way up to the base of the nose. Once these pieces are glued on, then we would add the chin piece that blends off into that, the upper lip piece that blends off into that, into a harness, sort of like a backpack kind of harness. It has connection points around the sides. Then we slide on the foam legs, hooks and snaps, connect to the waist belt that he has on. Once these are on, we have what's sort of known as the butt pad, and then these hip pads. Then the upper body goes on. These are his foam arms. These are really lightweight. His arm slides into that, and it actually connects to the bodysuit through the series of hooks and snaps. He literally slides into that. That big neck flap is pulled out and put over top of it. Then it's closed up in the back. And once he's to that point, the body's together, and then the wardrobe goes on over top of that.
Imagine how much time could have been saved if you just hired a fat person in this role. He's not the only person who has used like fat suits and enhancements. Definitely because it's a man playing a woman's role, there's like breast padding and just feminizing padding. But this is a whole different level to me. Like they're covering his entire shins.
Shaving my arms, my legs, my eyebrows, my chest, because I'm the one who has to strap in certain parts of me and blossom out other parts. I wear 25 pounds of liquid fat in my fat suit. I dance in high heels. I wear wigs that weigh 2 and 3 pounds each.
I talked to my friend Nathan about it a little bit too, so I'm going to insert some clips from that conversation. If you're interested in seeing the full conversation, keep an eye out for it on my channel. But here's me and Nathan talking a little bit about the whole fat suit thing. What is your opinion on the use of fat suits and prosthetics in portrayals of Edna outside of things like fake breasts and padding to kind of feminize the figure?
Don't do it. Don't
Just hire
do
a fat
it. Like
person?
hire a fat person, and even if you have like some like there's a high school somewhere and they cast some like tall skinny kid to play Edna, just give them a fake bust and hips and that's it. Like you don't have to like go the full. We touched upon this, like, you know, John Travolta was in a fat suit, and like there is a behind. If you go on YouTube, you can find behind the scenes for any part of the Hairspray movie. There's like, you know, the casting of Tracy. There's like behind the scenes stuff. There's like a table, and it shows this like John Travolta's like face, and it shows like several levels of like double, like triple, like sextuplet chin, basically.
Into my brain.
Yeah. Even if they had to go the like double chin fat suit route, just a little bit, like just a little something would have been sufficient. And like what they settled on, I would say worked for the movie. And I like not to like discredit the makeup crew, like, cause you know, fantastic makeup job, but like you should have just hired a plus size actor. Like, I mean.
They literally, from head to toe, they had to cover John Travolta's shins, like his legs, with prosthetics.
Yeah.
They spent hours a day putting all of those prosthetics on. The final product was fine. I don't think it looked like ridiculous and crazy, but like, no. If you watch the 1988 film with Divine, you can see like his arms are his arms.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you had to like cover every square inch of John Travolta's body with prosthetics tells me that he just wasn't the right person for the role.
Yeah.
And regardless of like, he did it well emotionally, he did it well, he did the voice, he did all of that, but like if they had to put that much work into transforming him into a different person,
just get a different person.
Just get somebody who's bigger, who looks more like what you need. And like you mentioned, the like lineup of John Travolta prosthetics, that is something to me that is so rooted in like desirability and like only wanting like plus size people to appear a certain way in order to be acceptable. Like they picked and chose just how the plus size person's face could be in a way that they were still attracted to it, in a way that they were still... And there's a lot of weird quotes that I won't necessarily get into about John Travolta being like, oh, it's like if a hot person, like, went to waste. The way that it is spoken about like, bigger people existing, he just wasn't the right person for the role, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because he just doesn't have respect, allegedly. He doesn't have respect for, like, bigger people existing unless they exist in, like, exactly the way that he wanted. Like, they did so much editing and revising to, like, her figure to make her, like, still curvy and desirable, and it's... Then you don't want a fat person in the role. Like, you don't want a bigger person in the role if you just want a bigger person that was, like, still, like, hourglass curvy.
But that also kind of like undermines a lot of key themes in the story. Because like you said, they wanted to see like, oh, it's like someone who who was, fit, and then they kind of let themselves go. But then that kind of, it like, there's a song called Big, Blonde, and Beautiful in the show. Is Big Beautiful based off of this thing you're trying to say,
more
Mr.
like
Travolta? Like, it's...
Yeah, it feels like accepting the fact that, like, you can't... It's just like...
And
it's
Link
okay to be a bigger person.
Yeah, Link has the lyric, Tracy, I'm in love with you no matter what you weigh.
I know that he is not the only one that used a fat suit. Harvey Fierstein also discussed the process of creating a fat suit for his version of Edna, but it was spoken about with so much more respect. I will admit I'm biased to Harvey Fierstein. I love him so much, but it's night and day difference, in my opinion. Also, Harvey was already a bigger person, and the suit was just used to feminize his figure instead of just completely transforming him and adding so much weight. I want to quote a segment from Harvey Fierstein's memoir titled I Was Better Last Night. I actually have a copy of it right here. I have read this thing cover to cover, and I love it. I recommend it completely, especially the audiobook version. I love audiobooks. I think it's always better to hear somebody's voice, and especially a voice as special as Harvey's. Okay, so this is from page 239. I'm just going to pull this up. Let's see. Creating Edna was a team effort. Makeup, hair, and clothing were all part of the illusion. William Ivy Long was our costume designer and a willing playmate. We spent hours in a studio messing with foam and undergarments until we hit the right volume for Edna's body. At first, he had her shaped like the Jetsons' Miss Spacely with protruding chest that met a large tummy in a straight line down. No, my darling, I shook my head. Edna is a mother. A voluptuous Botticelli nude gone wild. Think Etruscan fertility goddess. To me, that's not about how sexy Edna is to him, and not like being like, oh, how curvy can I make her? How big can I make her boobs? And that's the vibe that John Travolta gave to me. And I think the fact that Harvey is a gay man who appreciates and understands women in a different way and isn't going to be speaking about women in an objectifying way makes a difference. Interestingly, I also found John Waters speaking about the concept of fat suits in the context of Tracy, not Edna, but I'm going to go ahead and include that clip right here.
I'm also usually the lone holdout on the fat suit debate, always against casting a skinny Tracy and putting her in one. Isn't a fat suit the blackface of insult to overweight girls? There's plenty of fat talent in the United States. Everybody's fat. Find a real fat girl that can sing and dance. A skinny Tracy is like a white little Inez or a female Edna. It's just not right.
I found a good deal of discussion on both sides of the aisle about the casting decision of John Travolta, which I would like to share with you guys. First, for fun, we are going to read a couple of Letterboxd reviews. If you want to follow me on Letterboxd, I'm going to put it up on the screen. I'm not as active on there as I would like to be. I'm trying to get better about watching movies in general. If you see me watching something weird, mind your business. Feel free to follow me. I'll try to follow back. Anyway, this is what Letterboxd thought of the 2007 Hairspray film. Reese watched Hairspray on September 13th, 2024, rated it 4 stars, and said, either Wikipedia is wrong or the Academy has a lot of explaining to do for John Travolta's lack of an Oscar nom for Edna Turnblad. Mark Marshall rewatched on December 28th, 2020, nice little holiday hangout, I guess, rated it 3.5 stars and said, this is John Travolta's single greatest contribution to cinema. Sure, why not? Zebra watched this on October 31st, Halloween, 2025, rated it 5 stars, and said, watch the whole film thinking, wow, this actress deserves an Oscar. Turns out it was John Travolta. I can't tell if I'm the most LGBTQ plus supportive person alive or just really, really dumb. I think you're an ally. Sarah rewatched on December 3rd, 2022, gave it 5 stars, liked it, and said, honestly, John Travolta's finest work. And finally, Georgia watched on July 10th, 2022, only 2 days after my birthday, gave it 4.5 stars and said, Link! I can't even do it. I'm just gonna insert the clip. Link.
Link, your pork is ready.
Back to more serious topics. If anyone has memories of how they felt about this casting at the time or input about how they feel about it now, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I will happily yap about Hairspray with whoever will listen. So, a blog post from reverseshot.org written by Leo Goldsmith in 2009 had a few interesting quotes that I'd like to pull and discuss, so let's start there. Whether unconscionable sacrilege or hyper self-conscious camp, his appearance is nonetheless transparent image management of the most calculating and least entertaining variety. Travolta is no Harris Glenn Milstead, the Towson-born actor who played Divine. This is not only because Travolta would never crush his own mother under a Christmas tree for failing to buy him cha-cha heels, as Divine does with righteous indignation in Female Trouble, but also because Travolta is not actually obese. This seems at once obvious and coldly superficial, certainly, but this small conceit, continually reinforced with broad and winking fat jokes, is nonetheless at the heart of what is so maddeningly distasteful about Shankman's remake, and also suggests what's so brilliant about Waters' original film. For all their theatricality and pomp, Waters' films, perhaps the most essential, certainly the most self-conscious examples of what camp itself means in cinema, are authentic. They derive their power not from theatricality alone, but from its brutish altercations with the real world. Another good point raised in an article by David Denby titled Dream On, Hairspray and Ratatouille, iconic title, by the way, published in the New Yorker in July of 2007 that I wanted to echo. Both Firestein and Divine, who played Edna in the original movie, worked as female impersonators who confidently let us in on the joke. In my opinion, Travolta doesn't seem like he's in on the joke or like wants to play into the joke. It seems like he wants to maybe change the joke to fit his sense of humor and his sensibilities and his view of the world. It doesn't feel like he has an understanding of Edna and wants to like meet Edna where she is. It feels like he wants to meet Edna where he wants to meet Edna and then adapt the character to fit that. Obviously, John Travolta is not the only one contributing to this interpretation of the character. There are so many more people whose input went into the 2007 film. And honestly, I just really don't enjoy this casting decision if I think about it for more than like 2 minutes, or if I think about it outside of the context of the movie. Like if I'm just sitting down and watching Hairspray, I think I would probably enjoy it. But if I'm thinking about all of the outside context, I might have ruined it for myself. I hope I didn't ruin it for you.
At first you go, oh, that's John, you know. But then once you're into it, you just forget that it's me, and you just ride this trip with this very large woman.
I'm always writing something new. It just, sometimes it's a movie. I wrote for HBO, the sequel to Hairspray. They didn't make it, but they paid me. It was fair.
Wait a minute. There's that script. Where is that sequel? Where is that script? And we've got to make it.
We'll see. Maybe we will.
To turn the conversation a bit lighter and more fun, something that I learned while researching this video is that there have been several attempts at a continuation or a Hairspray 2. New Line said that they hoped to, quote, snag much of the original Hairspray cast. John Travolta, however, publicly announced that he would not return because he is, quote, not a big sequel guy. The sequel was set for a mid-July 2010 release by Warner Bros. However, in June 2010, Shankman told British press that Hairspray 2, White Lipstick, was no longer in development. So you might have heard me say Hairspray 2, White Lipstick, not just Hairspray 2. Yes, that was the working title for the Hairspray sequel. White Lipstick comes from the original working title for the 1988 John Waters film.
White Lipstick, I called it, and already had the ad line thought up when I turned in the treatment. When the color lines blurred, things got hairy. It's 1965, I wrote, and the mod revolution has already hit. Big hair is out, and the Beatles have made Motown music old hat. The Corny Collins show is still on the air and is integrated, but the ratings are down, and the black kids want their own all-black show with Motormouth Maybelle as the host. Tracy has flat hair. Penny is a weatherman lefty. Seaweed a black Muslim, and Little Inez a Black Panther. Edna has gone on a diet and is actually thin, and Welber has invented novelty eyeglasses for his joke shop that enable you to see through clothes. Link is obsessed with the British invasion, and underneath his mop-top hairdo are pimples that sing to him like the chipmunks. There are hairdo riots, sea nettle attacks, bad LSD trips, and actual miracles, all built around musical numbers with titles such as Grinding My Love, Purple Bone, Bedhead, Contact High, and the finale, Hairdo Paradise. I don't know. Maybe I went too far. I thought it could work. They didn't.
I also told my friend Nathan a little bit about this, so I'm going to go ahead and insert another clip. This is a quote from John Waters, who wrote a treatment for Hairspray 2.
As in like the 80s Hairspray or like the musical Hairspray?
And this was after the 2007 film.
So it would have been a sequel to that.
It would have been a sequel to that. The director of it, asked John Waters for some input and then was kind of like, John Waters had some crazy ideas. We're still seeking a writer, though. He very much dismissed it as, we're probably not going to use these ideas. John Waters has also been, approached by HBO, been paid to write these scripts, and then nothing has come from it for maybe an okay reason. You see, Hairspray 2, well, it's called White Lipstick. It's about when the real 60s hit in the show isn't as popular anymore. It's the new hip coming in, which really happened. You know, the black kids want to have their own version of the show now. They don't want to have to share with the white people. Little Inez kind of turns into Angela Davis. Link has to pretend that he's British to get a singing career kind of going because the Beatles just hit and everyone wanted their kind of music. So he has these pimples underneath his Beatles haircut because he never washes it. And they start singing to him, kind of like the Chipmunks, as in Alvin and the... We never got to the songs. In the script, I kind of described what the songs should be. It was just a development deal. The people behind it really laughed when they read it. I don't think the producers themselves did. They might have been horrified for all I know.
Well, we missed out on Zac Efron in a Beatles wig. That's the thing we missed out on. No, it's too cheesy. It sounds too cheesy.
The director, Adam Shankman, very much kind of agreed with that of we took ideas from him, but and I think my understanding, because I listened to the audiobook of one of John Waters' tell-all books, and he talked about how he has pitched it a few times and it's been denied. And he seems to have an understanding of the characters that the majority of people who like the show don't necessarily agree with. He was like, oh, I could write all of these ideas for these kind. It's maybe. Maybe your interpretation of these characters is not what audiences want. When asked about Hairspray 2, Adam Shankman said, "There are some really funny ideas. We don't have a writer for it yet. The producers and myself and the composers decided on a direction we want to go in." Continuing, "We sat down and said, Hairspray 1 worked for this reason. Why would we do Hairspray 2?
But how is Hairspray 2 coming along?
Hairspray 2 is coming along fine. John Waters wrote an outline. A lot of the ideas are fabulous. A lot of the ideas are insane. And that's why it's John Waters. And so now we're out to writers and we're just figuring stuff out. And hopefully it's on track. Let's put it that way. Hairspray 2 is on track. And I love that there's energy and appetite for it. That's really cool. Appetite being an operative word.
He also spoke about a treatment that John Waters wrote, which was, quote, this crazy thing that they saw as more something to borrow from rather than pull direct ideas from, saying that they took some of the less insane ideas and continued the search for a writer. I don't think that Adam Shankman and John Waters necessarily saw eye to eye. And it's really interesting to hear them talk about each other. It's never disrespectful, but you can just tell they had different visions, to say the least. Speaking of Adam Shankman, and just because this was a weird thing that I found in my research that I wanted to find a way to shoehorn into this video. During one of the promotional interviews for Hairspray, Adam Shankman got asked about adapting a certain musical to film, and he had this to say.
You should do Wicked. You gonna do Wicked?
I don't know. Do we really want to see a lead actor in close-up who's green?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that answered it. That's a great show.
Okay.
If only you knew, Adam Shankman, how many people want to see that. Shankman later confirmed in 2010 that the sequel was killed, adding that it was okay because he was, quote, so happy with the first one, let's leave well enough alone. It's all good. I agree. And my friend Nathan also agrees.
I'm kind of glad they didn't do this now that I think about it.
In conclusion, a lot of changes were made to the narrative of Hairspray in general over time, but particularly to the character of Edna Turnblad, first from the movie, to the musical, to the movie, to the live musical, to whatever iteration comes next, which I'm honestly, other than different stage adaptations and the stage adaptation evolving over time, I'm okay if the story's not continued. Honestly, I'd be curious to know if anybody really wants a Hairspray 2 in the comments. I don't. But maybe that's a hot take. However, when it comes to any criticisms that I may have of the casting of Edna, I have to say, I feel like if John Waters approves, who am I to judge? Like, I can have my opinions, but if the father of Hairspray is cool with John Travolta, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. It can't be right all the time. And John Waters has said time and time again that he approves. Something that Adam Shankman has claimed that John Waters said to him really seals the deal. He said, "Don't do what I did. Don't do what the play did. You've got to do your own thing."
Longtime fans, out of misplaced loyalty, complained about the slickness of Adam Shankman's version. But I think he did the right thing. He changed Hairspray again. This time, my little independent movie was big, brassy, and filled with A-list Hollywood stars. I mean, John Travolta played Edna. That's why it worked. The movie versions of Rent and The Producers didn't work because they just filmed the stage musical exactly the way it was on Broadway. Remember, when you are trying to cash in on a successful previous work, the concept must change, or the Xerox copy gets weaker and weaker until you can't read it at all.
So you know what? I guess who am I to judge? Maybe I'm holding Hairspray back from evolving. Let me know in the comments what you think. That was my video essay. And now, before I end this video, I want to give a huge shout out to a few different people. One, Dana Heller, the author of Hairspray, which is one of the main sources that I used for this video. And reading this really helped me collect the thoughts that I've had for years about this role and this musical into kind of hopefully a comprehensive essay. I would like to think that I made some points here. And Dana Heller, this book was a huge part of that. Thank you for speaking about things the way that you do. This video would be so much less without what I absorbed from your book, which I absolutely loved reading. If you can't tell, it's hard to see, but it is annotated. So thank you, Dana Heller. Shout out to John Waters, Harvey Fierstein, I guess Adam Shankman. Shout out to you. You made that thing. Shout out to all the creatives and cast and all of the people that were included in any version of Hairspray. Love ya. The anniversary of Divine's passing was very recently this month, so I would love to also dedicate this video to Divine. Gone too soon. Icon. Appreciate everything that you've done and everything that you stood for, and Edna wouldn't exist without you. So thank you, Divine. If you got this far, please let me know in the comments which version of Hairspray is your favorite, which character is your favorite, what songs are your favorite, whatever you want to yap about Hairspray-wise, give it to me. Come to mama. Okay. That's funny.
Go, mama, go, go, go.
But mother, please give it a rest.
Okay.
Stop. Don't.
No.
Please. We'll say You Can't Stop the Beat is probably one of my favorite songs just of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And
it like builds and builds and builds, and it's just...
I can't not,
it's so good.
Yeah, I can't not. Do you know what it's called by people who have performed it? It is called You Can't Stop to Breathe.
Oh, God.
Because it's so, like, you are so, like, dancing and singing and all that.
And then,
that, like,
and then there's dialogue bits in between the numbers, and it's just like...